White in the shadows, red in my sight. They say when I'm seen, something's not right.
Hey all, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Pixels, and today we aren't doing the normal type of video I do. Look, I try to stay out of drama, and generally the investment side of Pokemon in general, it's not really my thing, but it's also kind of everywhere right now between grading and scalpers and the Pokemon market just going insane in general. It doesn't look like it's going anywhere right now. So even as I was researching this today, I actually got pinged from a local Facebook chat that I'm in. It's like a girls Pokemon chat group or whatever, where someone was getting effed by PSA. Shocking, right? So basically my video today is, guys, stop sending to PSA. Side note, while we're at it, also stop using Whatnot because you're gonna get scammed. Okay, so obviously today we're talking about PSA because the trust with that company is quickly evaporating. So before we jump in, we just need to look at okay, what was grading supposed to bring? Obviously, grading in the grand scheme of grading is actually fairly new to Pokemon. Prior to that, you would see a lot of sports cards and stuff getting graded, but even at 5 years ago, maybe a little longer, PSA didn't really do Pokemon cards. And when they did, it cost you $4 to grade a Pokemon card. Grading initially and in general is supposed to bring trust, consistency, transparent, authenticity into the trading card market. But in the last year or so, it's starting to feel like the exact opposite of that. And before we go on, let me be completely clear here. I'm not anti-collecting. I'm not anti-grading. I'm not even anti-PSA in theory, mostly because I don't tend to grade my cards. I do have a couple of cards that have been sitting around forever that I want to grade. Like my, I actually have the box right here. What do I have in here? Hang on. I'll actually change my view. There we go. So I have this Evolving Skies Leafeon that I want to get graded. I have a couple, there we go, promos that I want to get graded. I have this Vulpix that, there we go, this Vulpix from Mega that I want to get graded. So I do have, I have cards that have been sitting around forever that I want to get graded. But generally speaking, I don't grade, which is also why I have this giant box of cards that need to be graded, because I just don't really do it. When I am going to do it eventually, I'll probably send them to Tag. Why did I decide to go with Tag? Mostly because of all the PSA drama in the last year or so, but also because I like the look of Tag slabs. I like the fact that they have a transparent reporting system. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but Tag's kind of coming up behind PSA. So if I ever did decide to sell my Evolving Skies Leafeon, I wouldn't have it wouldn't be as easy necessarily as selling a PSA slab, but eventually it's going to sell. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. I guess at what point do we stop calling these PSA mistakes and just start asking harder questions? Because everywhere I look, there's PSA drama. Everywhere. If you look on YouTube, it seems like every day Rattle's got another post about PSA, or there's a billion PSA damaged my cards in my feed. So I guess a good place to start is right here, which is why I have this up. Because when I started hearing about stuff, particularly the first example we're going to talk about back in December, I went and I looked at PSA's terms and conditions. Now, interestingly enough, they have changed. And if we go all the way up, actually, it says last updated February 10th, 2026, which is super interesting because when my first example started happening, I actually went and looked at PSA's, oh no, okay, here we go. PSA's the section 10 where it talked about lost, stolen, or damaged goods, because I wanted to see, okay, like what terms and conditions were you guys agreeing to? Did anybody read this? My bet is not. My background, which I've talked about before, is in sociology. I actually have a master's degree. I specialize in research statistics, specifically in the area of criminology, fraud. I've worked with victims of fraud for quite a while, mostly on the side of like people getting screwed out of money, and then I help them like recover that money once there's been a like court filing. So a few years ago, I actually helped somebody get $10,000 back after they got a ruling from the court. It took me 4 years, but I did it. So I'm very like interested in, okay, like what do the terms and conditions say? What do they mean? That kind of stuff, which is why that was like the first place I went. Like, what are you guys agreeing to? So let's actually read this, and keep in mind they changed it, and I'll talk about that when I talk about the Deoxys incident. So, okay, lost, stolen, or damaged items. PSA will exercise reasonable and ordinary care in handling items submitted for authentication, grading, review, or reholdering. However, if PSA determines in its sole discretion that your item submitted to PSA for PSA services was lost, stolen, or damaged while in possession or control of PSA, except otherwise noted in these terms, see Section 18, so we'll go do that after, PSA will compensate you as provided in this Section 10 based on the degree of damage or loss up to the fair market value, and this is really important, of the item at the time of loss as determined by PSA standards and procedures, which may include filing a claim with our insurance carrier. Now, I'm going to stop here for a second because this part is really problematic, especially considering like right now PSA is taking like 8 months at a regular tier to turn around. It's also what came up in my group this morning. So I didn't like go all the way back to read it because I don't, full disclosure, I muted them. So I just saw like kind of the tail end, and somebody was like, it's BS that they're offering you what they did. They should be offering you compensation based on what the value of the card is today so that you can replace it. No, that's not what they're saying here. So it sounds like what's happened with this particular person is PSA damaged the item like 2 months ago in their procedures, and based on their terms of service, they've offered to compensate this person at the fair market value at the time that it was damaged, which was like 2 months ago, and she's getting notified like this week, which is complete BS, by the way. That just shows like another problem with PSA in their communication system. So yes, this is like super important for you to know. Of the item at the time of loss as determined by PSA standard procedures. Okay, so there's like the first problem. Regardless of the fair market value of your item, the actual compensation you are eligible to receive from PSA will not exceed the maximum insured value of the applicable service level. In no event shall PSA's total liability, whether caused by the active or passive negligence of PSA or otherwise, exceed the lesser of the fair market value or the maximum insured value of the item. We reserve the right in our sole discretion to determine the fair market value for an item by any means as we may determine. So this part has changed. This is the part right here. The fair market value for an item by any means as we may determine. That wasn't there back in December. The last time I looked at this, it had laid out how they determine that value, which, as we will see, and most of us probably already know, in the Deoxys incident that happened in December, it had been laid out. It was like, I can't remember because I did, and I wish I'd screenshotted it, but at the time I didn't expect I was going to do this video. It was like the last 5 sales or something like that, which of course led to the Deoxys incident, which we will talk about in a minute. So I suspect that Deoxys incident is why the terms and services were changed, which is super interesting. And just another reason, guys, PSA does not give an F about you. They literally, instead of clarifying and being like, yeah, guys, we effed up, we're sorry, fair market value will now be determined in X way. So in the case of, okay, actually, you know what? It just makes sense. Let's jump into this Deoxys incident because it just makes sense to do it in more context. So I'm sure you all know what happened with this incident, but let's just go over it. So, and I'll actually leave in the description below for anybody that wants like kind of an in-depth look at this. I think the guy that I'm going to leave a link to was the original guy who like posted on YouTube talking about this. But in any case, it's a really good video. It kind of goes more in depth. But basically what happened is some dude submitted a 2004 Deoxys card, which was originally a PSA 10. So this had already been graded. He just wanted it reholdered, which like, dude, I don't understand, like with all the problems going on with PSA, why you would send in your already like PSA card. But like, I digress because he's not on trial here. But basically what happened was they damaged the card. It got downgraded to a PSA 6 and they offered him compensation, which was way below market value. So at the time, and this is why I checked, at the time, PSA said that they would look at, it was like, I can't remember, I don't know why I'm situated on 5, but they had like a specific number of sales that they look at to determine fair market value. But with a card like 2004 Deoxys, it's not like, you know, there's like 8 cards selling a week. There had been something like 5 sales in 5 years. So what ended up happening was PSA was like, yeah, you can get, I think it was like $25,000 or $20,000 for this card. Meanwhile, the most recent sold on that card was $45,000. Which was sold by the PSA Vault. So, like, it was a PSA Vault sale on eBay. Now, keep in mind, a PSA Vault sale doesn't mean that PSA is selling the card themselves. It's technically owned by a different individual, and their card's in the vault, and then PSA's vault sells it on eBay. Like, that's how that works. But either way, PSA was selling it from their vault on behalf of another individual. So we could see that card sold at $45,000. So what PSA did was they actually didn't just look at the one sale. They went back like another year and looked at that sale, which was 20 or 25,000. And then they went back another year or two or whatever it was to a third sale, which was like 15K, and then averaged it and it came out to $25,000. Meanwhile, the guy whose card it was had an offer for $65,000. So he claims, obviously we can't like confirm that. But this guy says he had a $65,000 offer. PSA had sold for $45,000. And that was back in February, I believe, of last year. So with the market the way it is, that card probably did go up. So like chances are, yeah, that guy probably did have an offer of $65,000. But again, I digress. So we're talking about a difference of like, what, $35,000 with this card. So like, we're talking about a lot of money. All right, so this happened in December, and now suddenly their terms and conditions have changed to determine the fair market value for an item by any means we determine. PSA may elect, depending on the condition of a damaged item, to either A, return the item to you and compensate you for the reduction in value due to damage, or B, retain the item and pay the maximum liability available under this section. This is effed up, guys. So Okay. We've got PSA changing their conditions. We've got a guy in the last few months that trusted them with a high-end card and it came back worse. They didn't even fully cover the loss. Basically, if PSA damages your card, you're not guaranteed to be made whole again. You're not guaranteed to even be able to rebuy it at the same price, like, or even replace it at all, right? Like, we're looking at this Deoxys card, and I don't know, like, is there even... Oh, I don't want to go to my eBay because it's going to, like, show my name and stuff. Oh, maybe I can just, like, blur that. We'll see. I'll figure it out later. Okay, eBay. Let's see. 2004 Deoxys card. Pokemon. Can you even, like, replace this in the PSA 10? PSA 10. Like, does anybody even have any listed? This isn't even the right card. Oh, that's Japanese. So you could get a Japanese one. Is this even the right card? Might be. I don't think it is. Rayquaza. No, this card doesn't exist. So you couldn't get a PSA 10. So you couldn't even replace this card at the moment. Unless, I think this is the card. Is this the card? Pop 5, Gemmin. I don't think that's the card. It might be the card. I don't know much about Deoxys, guys. Okay, so this sucks. Anyway, let's continue on here. Please be aware, such compensation shall be your sole and exclusive remedy and our entire liability for any loss or damage to your item, and or, if applicable, any associated certificates or letters while in the custody and control of PSA, and is subject to your irrevocable release and discharge of PSA and its affiliates on your behalf and or behalf of anyone who may claim through or for you from any liability for loss or damage to the item, including due to the gross negligence of PSA or its agents and contractors. You must sign... This is great. You must sign PSA's standard release of claims as a condition of payment, which is usually an NDA. PSA reserves the right to withhold any claim settlements, credits, or other amounts payable to you if you have outstanding amounts payable to PSA, and PSA may discount such amounts payable to PSA from any amount payable to you. Okay, let's take a quick look at section 18. Blah, 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 16, 17, 18. Okay. Pressing services disclaimer. Blah, blah, blah. Due to fraud, blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. Autographs. Okay, must be this part. Okay, let's see what this says. Shall we? Supplemental services on submitted items. PSA may, from time to time, offer, directly or indirectly, additional services to be performed on your submitted items while in PSA's possession, which may include, without limitation, comic or magazine pressing. Such supplemental services are not guaranteed to enhance the condition or value of a submitted item and may result in a lower grade than the item would have otherwise received. By selecting any such supplemental service, you assume all risks related to or resulting from the provision of that supplemental service, except as explicitly provided below. Any damage or loss occurring during the provision of supplemental services is not eligible for compensation under Section 10 of these terms. Jesus Christ. Okay, what are they talking about here? Pressing services disclaimer and release. PSA may offer you the option to have your submitted comic book, magazine, or other printed item cleaned and pressed. Due to the fragile nature or condition of paper collectibles, physical manipulation through pressing can sometimes be unpredictable, which in rare cases may result in new defects, including but not limited to spine splits, popped staples, paper chipping, and inadvertent creases. By submitting a comic book or magazine to PSA for pressing services, you waive any and all claims against PSA, its affiliates, and or agents with respect to your item's condition, value, or grade assigned by PSA or otherwise due to pressing, and 2, further agree to defend, indemnify, and hold harmless each of them from any such claims brought by a third party. This waiver shall not apply where a claim arises solely from PSA's gross negligence or willful misconduct. Okay, that doesn't apply to cards, so we don't care about it. So, That was a mouthful. I'm going to stick a cut in here and then come back and we're going to talk about some of the problems with PSA in terms of controversies going on. Okay, so we've looked at the terms of services. Now let's take a peek at kind of what's been happening with PSA over the last year. So this isn't like a really scripted video, but I do have notes here. So if you see me kind of like looking around, that's why, because I don't want to miss anything. So of course, first up is the inconsistent grading that we've seen from PSA. So there are many reports of people sending their cards in to PSA and getting like different grades. So if you go onto YouTube, you can like take a look at people that have like cracked cards and like resubmitted. And this isn't a big secret. Like this isn't a thing that hasn't been going on for years with PSA. People will get PSA 8s, 9s, and then they'll crack them and resubmit and get 10s. Now, a lot of this is just based on the fact that PSA does all their grading by hand. Like physical human beings look at the card, unlike say with Tag, where they have like an AI algorithm that like scans your card and assigns it a grade. So it's not really surprising that anything between like maybe an 8, I could see an 8 being like, if something goes from like an 8 to a 10, you're like, dude, like really? But when you're looking at like 9s and 10s, giving it a 9 or a 10 can be kind of subjective to the grader. These aren't like massive swings in the grade, but they are massive swings in the value of your card. As we know, people that are buying slabs prefer 10s. Like that's why they're buying slabs, whether that's for like their personal collection. Like if you go on YouTube, there are a ton of collectors that are like, I want the most perfect card, so I want to buy a PSA 10, which like we could go down the whole rabbit hole of like, okay, well then why aren't you just collecting is it the black labels, right? Like, why aren't you doing that? Because those are technically like even better. But I digress. There are plenty of collectors that just want PSA 10s. So anything basically under a 10, with the exception of a PSA 1, because there are collectors that for whatever reason like to collect PSA 1s, which are like severely damaged cards, which is actually like a whole other thing, because there are a lot of people that you can even go on and see on YouTube. People like will have a card that's not a 10 and they'll try to like destroy it so that it's a 1, which is impacting the collectability of PSA 1s now, because people are like, well, if people are just like damaging their cards to get it, then why am I doing this? But again, sorry, I digress. This is what happens when I don't have a scripted YouTube video. But the point is, these are not small differences in terms of value, right? Like a PSA 9 is basically going to be the equivalent of a raw copy or just under. If you look at Japanese cards, actually, when I went to Japan, I bought several PSA 9s because they were like well under the raw copy. And then I just like cracked them and threw out the slab before I came home and threw them in my binder. So like for people that are looking to sell cards, getting a PSA 9 instead of a PSA 10 is like crazy, like a problem, right? But to further this, like there's no transparency, like how did you come to this? Like they do have like sort of a grading rubric. So we know anything with a dent in it, for example, is an automatic PSA 6. But beyond that, like there's no real transparency. You don't get a full explanation of why your card got the grade it got. It will be interesting with Tag now doing like Tag has full reports. So it will kind of be interesting if PSA ever decides to do that. But at the moment, it's just fully subjective. So you're basically paying, at least like from my point of view, again, I'm not a grader. I do like Tag slabs, so I have like cards that I want to get graded just for like my personal collection. And choosing Tag, they're kind of like secondary to PSA. So if I ever do want to like sell, I know I can like go to a card show and be like, hey, vendor that sells Tag, like, what'll you give me for these? But yeah, so there's like no report. There's no like what's wrong here. There's just like PSA being like, trust us, bro, which is a problem when you have like this year-long, what do we call this? Year-long like jumping off the cliff for PSA. So let's move on to another scandal that PSA has had. Buybacks. This has been like a big problem. PSA started doing buybacks where, now I'm not like 100% sure like how it works, because again, I don't grade, but from the research I did, my understanding is you submit cards, they get graded, PSA sends you an email with their reporting or like what your grades are, whatever, and they'll send you offers for your cards for them to just like buy you out immediately. So if you get like a bunch of 9s, PSA will be like, here's our offer on your PSA 9s. Now this seems to be because PSA is also working with, I believe it's GameStop for their like electronic mystery slab things. So they needed to buy up like a whole bunch of cards underneath 10s, which has led to a whole bunch of, I don't want to call them conspiracy theories because we don't actually know that that's not what's happening. But basically it's led to a bunch of people being like, okay, so now PSA has this like giant conflict of interest. They're buying people's cards back and then like reselling them in mystery slabs. So now they have a motivation to grade cards lower than what they actually are. Which leads into another current example where a collector submitted 30 modern cards and most came back at a PSA 9. So PSA offered the guy buyback at PSA 9 pricing. The collector accepts. Then some of those cert numbers were later updated by PSA to PSA 10s without notifying that collector. Later on, they did say like once it came to light and people started like reporting on this, PSA was like, oh, this was actually like a mistake and our departments don't communicate properly, which we're gonna like try to fix. And what happened was, for quality control purposes, those cards were reviewed and determined they were actually 10s and not 9s. And so they got updated, and then we didn't know that an offer went out to you, and we're very sorry. So here's the thing. I can see that absolutely happening. I mean, we have like, it's a freaking corporation. People don't talk in corporations. The problem is that they have this like massive conflict of interest, and because they are selling cards and working with GameStop, they need to make sure this shit doesn't happen, because it looks bad. And obviously people are going to be like, oh, you're just effing us to further your business, your business means. So at best, it's just incompetence and bad communications. Mid-tier, it's a conflict of interest. And at worst, we all know, we all know what it is, and that's being generous. Okay, let's talk about another problem. The quality control is basically falling apart. If we scroll through, do I have it up here? I do. Okay. We'll move this here, and we'll transition this here. Make this big. Okay. Where's my notes? Here's my notes. Okay, so in the last year, at least, we have examples of PSA quality control just like completely falling apart. We have damaged cards and slabs returned to collectors, wrong cards being sent back, cards in the wrong slabs, wrong labels on the cards, people receiving other people's cards, horrendous buy offers for damaged cards, i.e. 2004 Deoxys, ignoring cards they damaged and offering nothing. And we can like see this just by like going through YouTube. Here's just like the shorts of PSAs, controversies, damaged cards, PSA offers money back in some situations. Here's some guy talking about PSA having a fraud problem. He looks pretty pissy about it. damaged $45,000 card. So this is clearly a guy talking about the Deoxys situation. Here's another PSA damaged my card. PSA is officially cooked. This is that $45,000 thing again. Let's see, what else can we pull up? PSA, wrong labels. Mislabeling cards, PSA new cert versus old certs. Here's more mislabeling. Is this Danny? That looks like Danny, right? I really love her channel. Yeah, so like it's a problem. This isn't like one bad story. Like this isn't like, oh, we damaged this card. It's worth like $45,000 at last sale. This is like just an ongoing problem with PSA that's everywhere. And at some point it stops being oops and it's a pattern. Look, PSA grades over 1 billion cards a month. If your card is worth more after grading, you pay more. Whatever. The problem is this creates financial incentives tied to grades, and at best case, it's just overwhelming human error. Middle of the road, it's conflict of interest, buybacks, upcharges, etc. At worst, again, we all know. So, how did this like even happen? And why does this like matter so much? And this is like something that I was thinking about this and it kind of really clicked for me. In my like feed, and I think it's because I watch like a lot of just like podcasts and I watch a lot of, so I don't like do drama videos, but I love watching drama videos. Just get like my chips or popcorn out and I'm like, what's Opossum Bud gonna say today? Or like, what's Strawberry Pokemon who's she roasting today? And I think as a result of that, I get a lot of like other videos that pop up and a lot of like vendor POVs and a lot of like Twice Baked Jake and stuff that come up. And every once in a while, I'm like, ooh, okay, what's this guy saying? Now, Twice Baked Jake is quite well known on like the investor side. He's also well known on like the collector side. Like I know he's been roasted a couple of times by like bigger YouTubers like Opossum or Strawberry Pokemon, mostly in a way of like him being an investor bro. But I did watch one of his videos this morning. And he was talking about, it was from like 3 months ago, which would have been like around just after the Deoxys thing happened. And he was talking about how like he's not sending to PSA anymore. I don't know if that's still true, mostly because PSA is still your premium grading company. They're going to get you the most bang for your buck. And Twice Baked Jake is very open about selling his cards on eBay. But what he was saying is that it's really easy for him to sell a card that's PSA because like he just posts like one picture of a PSA 10. People never message him to see like close-ups. They never message him for multiple pictures. They never message him for the back. And the problem is that with all of these issues happening with PSA where they're like people are buying the grade instead of the card, which then connects back to, okay, but they're sending back like damaged cards. They're inconsistent with their grading. So like it might say a PSA 10, but it could be like a PSA 8. I'm looking at you, Illustrator, Pikachu Illustrator. Like that's a prime example of a card being graded an 8. And then at some point it was like resubmitted and PSA was like, yeah, this is a 10. How does a card go from like an 8 to a 10? And if you like actually look at the PSA, the Pikachu Illustrator, like you can see like there's whitening on it. Like this is not a 10. Like you look at the corners on the back and stuff, they're whitened. All 4 corners have whitening on them, that kind of stuff, right? So like And then people are just like, oh yeah, it's a 10 now. Which ended up in the hands of King Douche, also known as Logan Paul. He bought that for like $5.5 million. It's really important to note that, because I see this a lot. A lot of people say that Logan resubmitted that card and got a 10 and then was able to like sell it and flip it. That's not the controversy around the Pikachu Illustrator and Logan. This video isn't about that, but I'll leave a link below to Rattle Pokemon's like playlist on the subject of King Douche and his Pokemon Illustrator. But his controversy around that is not him getting the 10 on it, but it's a prime example of like people just jumping to that conclusion because they no longer trust PSA. So they like see the issue with Logan and they're like, oh, that card was an 8 and he was just able to get a 10 on it. There's like not even a question of, oh, maybe I should look into this a little bit more to understand what actually happened, because nobody actually trusts PSA anymore, or at the very least, like, it's going down. And I see this just as like a regular collector walking around at card shows, which I'll talk about it a little bit later. But it's a problem, right? You're not buying cardboard anymore. You're just buying the number. And that only works if you trust the number. But now, who can really trust the number? Okay, so here we are. People are starting to walk away from PSA. We see that with Twice Baked Jake. I see that at card shows. I'm seeing a lot more tag slabs at the shows I go to, just in my city. I also hear people asking for tag 10s. So what are those cards? I just remembered a story. Japanese collection EV hand drawn. What are these cards called? Yes, these ones. Okay, I'm gonna pull this up. So, stream transition. Okay, these cards. What are these called? What are these called? Okay, so there's a set. These. Can I like get this up? Here we go. Okay, so these ones. There was a guy at a card show I went to recently, and he had the full set of these in tag 10. And it was interesting because I'm not really, like I said, I'm not really a grader, but I saw that he had a lot of tag slabs. And so I started a conversation. I was like, hey, like, I'm not actually in the market, like, full disclosure, I don't want to buy your slabs, but, like, I do like tag slabs, and I'm just wondering, if I chose to sell them, like, how hard have you found it to sell? Like, what are they selling at? Like, can you give me any information? And he was like super friendly, and he was talking about how he prices his tag slabs the same price as PSA slabs. He's done that for a really long time. And what he's noticed is that his tag slabs are starting to sell at PSA pricing. He did say that it's taken a little bit longer for those to sell, but in the last 6 months or so, he's noticed that they're selling faster and people are asking for tag slabs more, and he's selling more because he exclusively deals with tag. When I asked him why, he said that personally he just likes the slabs more, which I totally get. I frankly think PSA slabs are ugly. I like tag slabs, but like everybody has their thing, right? He also likes the reporting. Like, a lot of people always say, like, I like that tag tells you why you're getting that grade. And we ended that conversation, but I was just at like the table next to him. And I think I actually have this up on my channel right now as a buyer POV, so you can like see this whole interaction. If I can find it, I'll post it in the description below. But a guy walks up and he wants to know so he had all of these in PSA 10s. And he walked up and he was like, hey, I have all of these in a PSA 10. Would you trade your tag 10s for my PSA 10s? And the vendor was like, oh, hell no, dude. And the guy was like, what do you mean? Like, PSA is worth way more. And he was like, yeah, I don't like PSA slabs. So it was just really funny that like in that moment where I was asking about tag slabs, some random dude tried to trade him all of his PSAs for this guy's tags. And now the vendor did say, like, if you take those to basically any table, there's going to be tons of vendors in here that are willing to buy them. But I just thought that was like really funny and a prime example of like this situation and where I see it going. Now, interestingly enough, they're getting fed up. Like at the very least, people are getting fed up with PSA. This morning I noticed a bunch of posts. This is kind of like related but not related. There's now an antitrust lawsuit that has been filed against PSA. I'm not really going to go into it. I'll post a link in the description below. But basically, it's because they own SGC and Beckett as well, and the claim just says like that's over 80% of market, which is like less competition, less accountability, etc. So basically FPSA, and it's probably like, I haven't even looked at it, but if I had to take a guess, they're probably wanting the courts to determine that they have a monopoly. Yeah, so like TLDR, stop sending your stuff to PSA if you don't like it. They're not going to compensate you. They're going to send you back to their BS terms of service and tell you we can do whatever we want, and you agree to those terms and services. If you want to get your stuff graded with PSA because you like the way the slabs look and you don't have any intention of selling them, maybe hold off. Like, I'm not here to judge you that you like PSA slabs, but if that's the case, like, you have no reason to be sending your stuff in, and why you would be doing it right now anyway is beyond me. The market's at peak. If you are sending your slabs in because you want to sell them and PSA is the gold standard, I don't know what to tell you, man. Nothing's going to change until all of you people just get together and say, PSA, until you like make changes, we're going to go with CGC or Beckett or Tag or whatever the case may be, because they have zero motivation to change their practices as a company as long as you guys are sending them over 1 million cards a month. Why would they change? It's the same as like with the Pokemon scalpers. People are always complaining, oh, there's like 8 times MSRP on Marketplace, or like I had a friend that was complaining, and I'm so sorry because he does sometimes watch my videos, but he was complaining that he couldn't find first partner collection boxes, and he ended up buying one. Oh, and Rio, I'm not talking about you, although my friend Rio also did this, but like he didn't complain about it. He was just like, yeah, I bought them at a higher price. But I had another friend that bought first partner box for $110 from a scalper and then dared to complain to me about how scalpers suck and he can't believe that he had to pay $110 for the first partner box. Then don't do it. Just don't. If scalpers aren't making money, they're not going to be able to continue scalping the products. So like, maybe I'll do a whole other rant video on like the scalping situation. But at the end of the day, everything is like connected. PSA is not going to change until consumers force them to change. Scalpers are not going to stop scalping until they can't scalp the product. TLDR, stop sending your stuff to PSA. That's it. That's all you can do. Until then, like, then don't start complaining about how they suck and they're screwing you. Of course they're screwing you. We've seen this for a year. It's the same face, literally the same face I give when people are like, oh, I got scammed on Whatnot. Oh, really? Shock. Don't go on Whatnot. We all know you're going to get scammed. Even Coop's Collection got scammed on Whatnot. I mean, because he's a famous YouTuber, he also got credited for like the $2,500 God pack he got scammed of. But do you think like you or I are going to get credited $2,500 by Whatnot? If we get scammed? No, they're going to go, here's your $10 back. Get out of here. And we've seen that now for also over a year. Oh, you got scammed on Whatnot? Big shock. Oh, you got scammed or screwed by PSA? Shock. Stop sending your stuff to PSA. Okay, I'm done with this rant. This video's gone on long enough. If you like this video, please like, subscribe. I suspect this is going to bring other people to my channel that aren't usually into the same content I do. If that's the case, I do like cozy games, Pokemon. Check out the rest of my channel. I'd really appreciate it if you drop me a sub. It really helps my small channel go a long way. And I will catch you in the next one. Stop sending the PSA!
White in the shadows, red in my sight. They say when I'm seen, something's not right.